I'm Susan Euler. Halloween is one of today's favorite holidays, and despite what you may hear, it has nothing to do with witchcraft or devil worship. Rather, it has its origins in Iron Age Celtic culture and the four great fire festivals. When I was a kid, I loved Halloween. It wasn't the candy or being out late at night. No, it was the costumes. I absolutely loved dressing up, and I still do. The holiday known as Halloween dates from the Iron Age and a festival celebrated by the Celtic and Germanic peoples of Northern Europe. Known as Samhain, virtually all of the images associated with today's Halloween can be traced back to that ancient festival. Like modern people, the Celts wore costumes, went house to house demanding treats, lit bonfires, and carved vegetables into lighted jack-o'-lanterns. And they also believed that on Halloween, or Samhain, ghosts and other supernatural entities walked the earth. So Halloween has always had an emphasis on spookiness. Samhain was one of the four great fire festivals celebrated by the ancient Celts. Held on November 1st, the date is halfway between the fall equinox and the winter solstice. This diagram, showing the seasonal festivals celebrated by the Celts, is called the Wheel of the Year. It's a modern invention, based on a symbol used by the ancient Celts to represent both the sun and the god TRINITY, the god of thunder, who is also known as the wheel god. The eight-spoked wheel represents the sun's movement, as well as the perpetual cycle of growth and withering of vegetation, as the seasons change from spring into winter. And it also symbolizes rebirth, because as the days grow longer and the warmth of the sun strengthens in spring, the cycle begins all over again. Like all agricultural societies, the ancient Celts were very focused on the change of the seasons because they were crucial to their livelihood. The fire festival of Samhain was the most important celebration of the year because it marked the end of one cycle and the beginning of a new one. It was both their New Year celebration and the beginning of winter. The Celts believed that at Samhain, the spirits of the dead traveled back to the world of the living. This was regarded as generally a good thing, because like people of all generations, making contact with departed loved ones was something nearly everybody wanted to do. To welcome their dead back to earth, the ancient Celts kept their doors open and left out food and drink to make the spirits welcome. And since in some traditions this was the day in which all the people who had died during the previous year made their journey into the afterlife, bonfires were lit to help them find their way. So all in all, Samhain was a very positive celebration, one dedicated to honoring the dead, not unlike the Day of the Dead celebrated today in Latin America. So where did all the evil spirits we associate with Halloween come in? Well, even though the ancient Celts wanted to honor their ancestors, they were still afraid of the dead. For one thing, not all the dead were benevolent. Some were evil and sought revenge on the living by causing crops to wither and livestock to die. And at times, the spirit of a dead person would possess the body of someone living, a bad state of affairs all the way around. So, the bonfires lit on Samhain also served to keep evil spirits away and protect the living against possession. In addition, fear of demons, goblins, and other evil spirits was the reason for wearing masks and costumes. Masks and costumes have come down to us as an important part of Halloween as well. The theory behind the original tradition held that the spirit of a dead person would not want to take possession of someone so ugly and scary looking. So the more frightening the costume, the more protection it afforded. And to make matters worse, besides ghosts of dead ancestors, all manner of non-human entities came out of the underworld on Samhain. It was when supernatural creatures such as leprechauns, elves, and fairies were their most active, and you had to protect yourself against them as well. Rather than being the cute cartoon characters we think of today, these creatures were evil tricksters. Fairies were the most dangerous. The image of a fairy as a cute little girl with wings dates from the Victorian era. In ancient times, fairies were thought to be dead souls with unfinished lives, more like vampires than Tinkerbell. Well, I can't hide it anymore. One of the ceremonies that may have taken place during Samhain was human sacrifice. The Celts practiced human sacrifice. There's no denying it. And it was a part of the rituals practiced during the 4 great fire festivals, especially the May Day festival of Beltane. Its role in the Samhain festivals is less certain. Cattle were slaughtered during this festival as a way of thinning the herd before winter, and some scholars think that humans may have been sacrificed as well, especially in hard times as a way of winning favor with the gods. In any event, memories of Celtic sacrificial rituals live on in Burning Man festivals held in America and Europe, and in the straw effigies we like to decorate our homes with at Halloween. We call them scarecrows, but they probably have, a darker history. The Romans deplored human sacrifice, and when they took control of Northern Europe, they banned it and severely punished anyone practicing it. But the other ceremonies associated with Samhain continued as before, as long as no Roman laws were broken. In fact, the Romans incorporated their own traditions. One of their traditions that we still honor today comes from the Roman festival dedicated to the goddess Pomona, the goddess of fruit and trees. That tradition is bobbing for apples, which is still very much a part of Halloween. So how did Samhain become Halloween? Well, that has to do with the Romans as well. In the 4th century AD, Rome became a Christian nation under the Emperor Constantine the Great. The Christian Romans were less tolerant than their pagan Roman ancestors, who had been pretty reasonable in accepting other religions. As a result, their early Christian church set out to eradicate all non-Christian holidays, and that included Samhain. However, despite the best effort of Christian missionaries, the Celts continued to celebrate their traditional holidays, even though it meant they were denounced as witches and devil worshippers. In 1601 AD, after the Roman Empire was dissolved, Pope Gregory I, the pope who created the Gregorian chant, came up with a brilliant plan. Rather than try to stamp out pagan beliefs, he instructed his missionaries to use those beliefs as a way of explaining the Christian message. This had been done a century earlier when St. Patrick had used the 3-leaf shamrock and the sacred Celtic TRISKELE as a way of explaining the Christian Trinity. The TRISKELE was soon accepted as a symbol for the Trinity and is still widely used today. Other examples include the fir tree and mistletoe, both pagan Celtic symbols for eternal life and rebirth, because they stay green and obviously alive all winter. Today, we know them as symbols for Christmas. But Samhain was a bit more difficult for the early Christians to reinterpret, with its emphasis on the supernatural and its wild bonfire parties. However, since Samhain was the Celtic New Year's and was the most important of the old fire festivals, the Church Fathers had to keep it. So, they transformed it into All Hallows, or All Saints' Day, which is celebrated on November 1st, just like Samhain used to be. November 2nd became All Souls' Day, a day in which all the dead are honored and remembered, again, just like Samhain. The festivities associated with the old pagan Samhain were pushed back to October 31st, which became a secular, not a religious holiday. We know it as Halloween, All Hallows' Evening. And nothing much has changed. Old beliefs die hard. Today, Halloween is just as popular as it was 2,000 years ago. As hard as this may be to believe, Fortune magazine reported that last year Americans spent over $7.4 billion on Halloween-related products. Costumes, $2.8 billion. Candy, $2.2 billion. Decorations, $2 billion. And $350 million on pet costumes. The ancient Celts would be proud. For the 10-Minute Professor, this is Susan Ray Euler. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe to the Susan Euler channel. I've got lots more videos, just like this one. My novel, The Fires of Manai, takes place during the Roman occupation of Britain, based on an actual historical event in which the Roman legions were met on the beaches of Mona by a black-robed, torch-waving mob of Welsh druids. The Celtic fire festivals play an important role in the story. You'll like it.